Welcome to the Gadgets for Families. If you're on the podcast post show, if you're on the video, welcome to our second episode for the week. And this is where we have of late really exposed our age. So I know that my sister at one point on Instagram took one of our shorts and said, my brother really showing his age here, because we're actually almost 11 years apart. And then like 2 days later, there was another one, and she put, again, really showing his age.
Right.
So,
So
I'm going to embrace it.
Yeah, this is
Call it
us
good.
now. This is us
Yeah.
now. I'm really enjoying it. This is a really fun part of the show that we've been doing, and yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. There's nostalgia.
Look, I'm going to live in my RV. Up until lately, the only people you thought were living in their RVs were folks that were retired that never got to travel and wanted to see the country, right?
Right.
It's different now because there's some young families that decide to adopt the full-time RV life. But
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just embracing it and embracing the grandpa, and so yep.
Yeah.
All right, so what I want to do for the show today, for this episode, is let's talk about TV.
Right. Wait,
Classic.
before we get to that, anybody that's just tuning into this episode, they're gonna wonder why I'm sitting in complete darkness. Well, halfway through recording the main show, we lost power. Which, really cool thing with Riverside is I'm still uploading at 98 over cellular. It shouldn't affect the quality of the video, although it's just recording a pitch black screen. Other than me holding my watch up.
There you go. See, yep. There you go.
And these Apple devices are still keeping us going, so you don't lose any of the information, but it's gonna look weird on video.
Yeah, and if we do some of our shorts that do the split screen, we're gonna have a dark portion and then me, and so we'll see how that. I don't know. Maybe I'll play with that. But anyway, at least you'll get the content. Sorry, I should have explained that if you didn't watch the main episode. But the show must go on. So, all right. So classic TV shows. I want to start off. I want to tell a little story. So this is how I think about classic TV shows. So in the last episode, or in the main episode, Jason talked about this was a lot of our summer stuff. So, I didn't get to watch a ton of TV except for during the summer and Saturday morning cartoons, which we probably need to do a whole episode just about Saturday morning cartoons. But I had, my brother and I shared a room. We had bunk beds, and I was on the top bunk, and the room was long enough for our beds and a dresser behind the door. That's about how long the room was. So, not very big. We lived in a single wide trailer. So, you can imagine how long the room was. But I remember that during the summer, I had a little black and white TV that sat on the dresser at the very end of the room, and I could lay in my bed, and my parents didn't have a bedtime for me. And so I could watch TV as much as I wanted. Yes, black and white. Right. So this is when I fell in love with watching reruns of shows. And so a lot of my childhood was doing that, because my parents, I'm sure we're not going to put these on our list, but my parents watched Dallas and Falcon Crest, those kind of nighttime soap opera-y kind of things. That's what they watched, and they would watch with my grandparents and all that kind of stuff. But during the summer, and there's no shows really back then that ran during the summer, right? Everything ran during the school year because that was prime time. So I was always watching reruns. So that's my story. When I got a little bit older, my grandparents had it was about a 5-inch TV screen that was color. And I actually took that to college with me, oddly enough. In my college dorm, that's what I had. And so that was the same thing. That's what I used to watch TV. So that's where my experience is going to come from, just to kind of give you some context. But that's how I grew up watching TV.
Right. So sort of the same. We didn't quite have, my first television wasn't quite black and white, but it wasn't quite color either. Right. We think about how technology advances now with these 4K LED TVs, and every year we go to the store, or we're in the electronics store, and we see those big displays, and the water looks wetter and the flowers have more dew on them and you can see more detail. That's how color TV started. So it wasn't quite black and white, but it wasn't quite color either, right? So I remember a terrible, it was Magnavox. I think that was the original one we had. And it was a color TV, but it was barely colorful. Like even looking at the old, like with the bunny ear antennas and stuff like that. I
was going to say, didn't it also depend on how you had the bunny ears set about how much color or picture you got in general? Yeah.
Yep. And they were always broken or bent or something like that. And it was just always terrible.
Tinfoil.
Yep. You had to add the foil on it. You had to angle it towards the windowsill or move the TV in that area where you can get a better signal. But yeah, that's how it started for me. And it was always, like you said, it was, my mom wasn't super strict, but she was strict to the point where, walk in the door, homework first, and then everything else. So yeah, we had chores and stuff like that. We had to make sure things got done. And then the rest of the evening was, hey, go have fun. And it was always, watching TV until it was time for bed. So, and then in the summertime, it was, no schoolwork. She would make us read from time to time, but it was pretty much Nintendo or television 24 hours a day, sometimes up all night watching different shows until you get the national anthem and they play and they show the deer running and the eagle flying and the national anthem will go off and it says, this is the end of our regularly scheduled broadcasting. And then the infomercial started.
Well, back in my day, we didn't get the infomercials. We got static or we got that. Yep. And it was the rainbow colored.
Right. With the station logo on the front and things like that. Yep. So these kids, they don't have a clue what we're talking about. Nope. Because TV is basically, they can watch anything they want to watch 24 hours a day at any time, any location. So boy, have times have changed since then.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some of these shows that we watch. What do you have?
Let's do that. And let's just, I know we don't want this to run for hours and we probably could. So we'll just mention a show, talk about when we watched it and kind of where it ranks in our show. So I'm going to start with one that I know is on both of our lists. So this show I really got into in college. Again, this was late night TV. Mm-hmm. And because we never had cable growing up, which is, I'm sure, part of why, but got into it in college. And that's also when I got my wife starting to watch it. And that is, in my opinion, I know it's not yours, in my opinion, the best Star Trek. And that's Star Trek The Next Generation.
Well, okay, so that was mine. And like most people, The Next Generation is their introduction into Star Trek. It is by far the most popular Star Trek. So I didn't quite watch the original series until I was an adult. So actually, I agree with you. The Next Generation is probably my number one show that I watched as a child growing up.
Yeah, I know you like DS9. I know you like DS9 and a few of the others better, but that was college for me, and that was probably what got me hooked into sci-fi in general.
Right. Me too. DS9 is my favorite. Is my favorite show. As far as story goes and characters, DS9 is number one. But The Next Generation was my introduction, and it's what made me a sci-fi freak was Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I agree with you. One I don't have on my list, you just reminded me when you were talking, was Knight Rider. Knight Rider was my show. David Hasselhoff, or the Hoff, as kids like to call him, was
prior to Baywatch. Everybody, that was not his first hit. Just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, it wasn't his first hit. He was my hero back then. And I remember being Michael Knight as a Halloween costume one year. I didn't do the white face or anything like that, but I had the leather coat and the nice little wig, the brown wig and stuff like that. Knight Rider, man, just in love with the car and in love with the characters, in love with the every episode was written. Watching it now as an adult, they all kind of followed the same same formula. you know, it was the same story, basically, just characters swapped out and situations swapped out. But they followed a strict formula. But they did that for what, 3 long seasons, 3 or 4,
Yeah.
like very long seasons. And I remember watching it whenever it was on the TV. You know, whether it was reruns from previous seasons or part of a programming block that just included it. No matter what I was doing, if it was playing on the TV, I sat in front of the TV and I watched Knight Rider. So that's probably my second pick after Star Trek that I love.
All right. Let me throw out. I'm gonna do the theme song. You tell me which one it is, and it's no. Actually, I'll do a quote from it. I love it when a plan comes together. Do you recognize that one?
No. Give me another quote.
No, now I'll have to do the song. A-Team.
The A-Team. The A-Team. Yes.
There you
yes.
go.
That was another good one. I watched it for the action. I didn't quite love it as much as most people do because a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia when it comes to the A-Team.
Yeah.
Do you fall in that category?
I do. I have a lot of nostalgia, and I was thinking about, you talked about Knight Rider following the same pattern, and
right.
A-Team, there was always one scene where they flipped over a vehicle,
right,
with a bomb. Right, they'd throw the bomb,
right.
and the vehicle would end up on its top. So, no, I loved A-Team. I actually owned the first season digital because it got to that point, and I love watching the clips, and some of them have been popping up in my feed, but I love that kind of mystery and intrigue and planning. I think that's why I like Leverage, for example,
right.
in today's more modern shows. So yeah,
Okay.
A-Team was super high on my list. That was not one of my nighttime shows. I haven't got to those yet.
Okay. So there was one that I saw on your list that I was like, it brings back so many memories because I wanted to hate this show. I wanted to hate it. The theme music, as soon as the theme music started playing, I was like, this show. My brother was a big fan of it, my older brother, and I would sit and watch it with him, or my uncle too. My uncle was, they were really into it. My grandparents were into it. So being a young kid, you would hear it and I would want to be like, I hate this show. It's so boring. And then once it starts going, I fell in love with the characters and the stories, and that was MASH. Right? You remember
Yeah.
the theme music coming on, and
Yep.
the theme. It you would think that it would be boring, but you start to love it after a while.
Yeah, that one my grandparents got me hooked on. That one
Yep.
I do remember watching when it was actually out
Oh, so they
live.
were still making. You know what? I believe they still were making when I watched it, like the later seasons.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean it's such a classic show, and I think it's still the most watched TV show like ever. Well, if not,
Yeah.
it's like right up there, the finale of it. So yeah, I mean, I just love the whole thing, and they just kept going and going and going, and I love
Yep.
it. And Alan Alda has a podcast. I've listened to some of it. He's got remember what he's got now, but he's got some very debilitating disease, and he's talked
Mm-hmm.
about it. And I think one of the episodes of his podcast, he might have had Michael J. Fox on, which is
Okay.
such an interesting conversation between the two of them. And so, yeah, MASH was it. That of all of the shows I watched growing up, that probably hits my number one.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's pretty up there for me. And again, I remember being a child, being defiant, wanting to hate that show, wanting to hate the theme music, and just loving it so much. It just
Yeah.
once you get to know the story and the characters and stuff, it just sucks you in. And yeah, like you, my older sibling and my uncle and my grandparents, they got me hooked on that show because it was only one TV. So when it was
Yep.
playing, they were watching it, and you either not watch TV or you watch MASH. And
Yep.
yeah, I have a love for that show. Yeah. So one I would say that really influenced my teenage years was a show called A Different World. Now this basically showed the Black experience for college students, right? Really, at a young age, it really showed you what college would be like and it was a HBCU that they went to. It was a fictional one. It was a spinoff basically from the Cosby Show, same producers and showrunners and stuff like that. But it basically just showed a group of black teenagers in college, and man, was just not only an influence to go to college to experience that life and stuff when you're a child, but it was also just a great show, great characters and stuff like that. So I put this one on the list not only because I watched it all the time. Again, it's one of those shows, if it was playing, whether it was a rerun or not, I was watching it. But I also put it on the show because it was just such a big influence on my childhood. So I'll mention one of the characters. His name was Dwayne Wayne. He had these glasses that had the shades that flipped up, and he would wear them flipped up all the time. And everyone wanted those glasses and wanted the saddle backpack like him. It was a saddle bag, but he used it as a backpack for his books and stuff like that. And he was just the coolest character ever. So I put that one on the list because it was not only a good show, but a huge influence on my life growing up as a child.
All right, I got one more, and then I definitely want to get to a couple of yours. Here's let me give you the theme song. Just a good old boy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have to go any farther, did I?
Yeah, that was another show, just like Knight Rider, man. It was just a cool car. The Duke boys got into all kinds of trouble. You know what I mean? They were always, again, sticking to that same formula for the episode. Always jumping that car over police cars.
Yep.
So much so that I wanted a car like the General Lee. That's how influential that show was.
Yeah, we've got here in town. There's a car that's painted. It's an old car like that. It's painted like the General Lee, which is kind of cool. But I always thought it would be awesome to have doors that didn't open. And that's what got me thinking I would rather be an archery hunter versus a rifle hunter.
Yeah,
because they were always shooting their bows.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that show. All right, which one do you want to hit next? Hopefully you'll hit the one I'm thinking of.
Well, so I don't have my list in front of me, and as we're going through, I'm remembering a lot of that I don't have on the list. I don't. So what's the one you're thinking of?
All right, here's the theme song. Just sit right back and hear a tale.
That was part of my. So we're gonna do a different show on Saturday morning cartoons, but if you remember, this one was one that came on after the cartoons ended Saturday morning, and not only that, in the summertime, it was reran like all day.
Oh yeah,
that's Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, this was one of my night shows. So this one and MASH and a couple others that I took off the list just for time. But yeah, Gilligan's Island.
Yeah, and I don't see why a show like that wouldn't work now, right? It's just timeless.
Yeah,
like even I know they still play it on like TV Land and what's the other channel that runs all of these old shows, but
AMC or whatever it is. Yeah,
they can remake this show, using new characters and stuff, and I believe it'll still be just as entertaining as that old show. I could be wrong. Man. I could be wrong.
I don't know if it's like, do you really want them to remake this one or Andy Griffith, or it's like having the debate about whether you want them to do a remake of The Princess Bride from a movie standpoint.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, it just, those original characters and just the contrast between the skipper and Gilligan. And I got to admit, I wasn't thrilled with how it, kind of how it all played out towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
But those early seasons, man, this thing was just so much fun to watch, because you're watching this going, how could anyone be that stupid and that lucky all at the same time?
All the time on every episode, right? Yeah, that show was one that it really filled my childhood. And that reminds me too, because after that one would end, my next pick was the Monkees. And the Monkees were like, I don't know if you watched that show. Hey, we're the Monkees.
I did.
So they were like a generic, like knockoff Beatles rock band, a traveling rock group. And it would come on after Gilligan's Island. And yeah, I just watched them in that order. So as many episodes as I saw of that, I watched of the Monkees. And that was really a huge part of my childhood summers. when we were inside. We were big outdoors kids too, but when it was time to watch Gilligan's Island and the Monkeys and a few other shows, Bewitched and a couple of the other ones, we were definitely in front of the TV when those came on. No on demand back then, kids.
Nope, no on demand. And so here's a couple of lessons, right? I mean, I watched stuff late at night, and then I watched Saturday morning. The only reason I watched Saturday morning is because I wasn't allowed to go outside till mom and dad got up, and that was the only day they could sleep in. So I could watch cartoons until mom and dad got up, and then honestly, I left the house and never came back right until dinner. And at a different time, different place where I lived. You know, I think I've told that, you know, riding bikes, riding motorcycles, riding three-wheelers, there was just, and I didn't have to ask permission. I just went and did. That was definitely a very different time. So that's when a lot of this comes in, right? Is when it's dark. So now you're not going outside, or it's, I can't go out yet on Saturday.
You just reminded me. That was exactly the reason why my brother and I were in the house. That was the same reason why my mom had to be up. And that was one of the only days that she could sleep in.
Yep.
And you reminded me. It was the same with us. We had to be in the house. We couldn't leave the house at 6 a.m. to go outside and play. Yeah, it was the same thing with us. That's why we were in the house on Saturday morning.
All right. Any others you want to mention, or are we wrapping up?
No, we can wrap it up. So many good shows, though. So many good shows that we didn't mention that were important shows to us. You know, I don't know if you watch Starsky and Hutch. If you watch,
Magnum
you mentioned
PI,
those. Oh yeah,
Hawaii
Magnum
Five-0, not the current version of Hawaii Five-0, the original. Fantasy Island, Love Boat.
Yep. Yeah, those were all good shows, but these really stood out to us.
Here's the other superpower when you get old, at least for me. I can remember the jingles and the theme music from all of this kind of stuff. I can't remember what my wife asked me to do today, but I can remember all of that stuff. So it's a superpower. I'm going to go with that.
So one of the reasons why we love cruising so much, well, not why we love cruising because we're cruising, but some of the things, our favorite things to do on the cruise ship is go to these trivias. And some of these trivias, they're usually things like name that tune, and they'll play a tune from a TV show, and they'll just play like the first 3 seconds of it, and you have to guess. Now, you have to remember the target age now, the average age is around, it's different for different cruise lines, but I believe Carnival is somewhere around like 45, between 40 and 45, which is my age range. And so a lot of these shows are 80s, things like that. So they're fierce competitions, right? There's a lot of folks my age and they recognize these theme songs. So, Greg, if you ever go, I encourage you to make sure that you're at all of these trivias because they do rock band riffs, they do the TV shows, they do slogans from old products and stuff, right? I can't think of any slogans now. What was Pepsi's old slogan?
Oh, I don't remember that, but I remember my baloney has a first name.
Right.
Yeah,
they do stuff like that, and you have to guess
the kind
of
stuff that I can remember.
Yeah. So those trivias are really fun part of cruising that we love to do. And I win some of them, but some of them, like these old TV shows, they play the theme music, like the 3-second little snippet of the theme music, and you have to guess it. So really, a lot of fun. But yeah, that was all.
Well, I think that's it then for today. Again, Jason still doesn't have his power. I'm surprised he hasn't said, I got to go check on this. But again, Houston, it's normal. It'll be back on either in 5 minutes or in 5 days. And hopefully not 5 days because Jason needs to pop popcorn.
So I do have my backup generator for the shop. I just pull it out and it runs on propane and I get to work. So
So thanks everyone for indulging us on this. I think this is kind of fun for our shows. We'll see how this goes, and again, we'll see how the video turns out on this when we get done. But thanks to Riverside and Apple for making sure we could at least produce a show this week. So have a great one, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, bye guys.